The great palace of Ninth Prime stood tall against the purple sky. Its walls were made of crystal that had taken 1,000 years to grow. Inside this palace, Queen Velith sat alone on her throne. She was beautiful in the way her people found beautiful. Her skin was like polished silver. Her eyes were large and dark, like pools of black water. 2 thin antennae rose from her forehead, and her body was covered in a light armor that grew from her own flesh. But today, the queen was not thinking about her beauty or her power. She was thinking about death. Not her own death, but the death of her entire species. The Nithari had ruled 12 star systems for 3,000 years. They were proud. They were powerful. They believed they were the greatest species in the galaxy. Other races were beneath them. Humans, with their soft skin and short lives, were barely worth noticing. The Nithari had everything they needed. They did not need anyone else. But pride had cost them dearly. For centuries, the Nithari queens had chosen their mates only from the noblest Nithari males. They believed this would keep their bloodline pure and strong. They were wrong. Each generation became weaker than the one before. Children were born sick. Many died before they could walk. The queens produced fewer and fewer eggs. The population dropped from billions to millions, then from millions to thousands. Now, Queen Velith was the last queen who could have children. If she failed to produce healthy offspring, the Nithari would disappear from the universe within 2 generations. 3,000 years of history would end in silence. The door to the throne room opened. An old Nithari walked in slowly. His name was Dorvan, and he was the chief scientist of the royal court. His face was tired and sad. Velith knew what that face meant. She had seen it many times before. "Tell me," she said. Her voice was calm, but her hands gripped the arms of her throne. Dorvan bowed low. "My queen, we have tested every male in the Dominion. None of them can give you healthy children. The genetic damage is too deep. If you bond with any Nithari male, your children will be born weak. They will not survive." Velith closed her eyes. She had expected this news, but hearing it still hurt. "Then we are finished," she said quietly. "Perhaps not, my queen." Velith opened her eyes. "What do you mean?" Dorvan stepped closer. "For the past year, my team has been studying other species. We looked at every spacefaring race we know. We tested their genetic material against ours. We were looking for compatibility. And you found something? We found humans." Velith almost laughed. "Humans? Those small, fragile creatures from a single planet called Earth? They lived such short lives. They had no natural weapons, no armor, no telepathy. They were weak in every way that mattered to the Nithari." "You must be joking," Velith said. "I am not, my queen." Dorvan pulled out a small device and projected data into the air. Numbers and charts floated between them. "Human DNA is unlike anything we have seen. It is incredibly adaptive. It can bond with almost any genetic material without rejection. When we combined human genes with Nithari genes in our laboratory, the results were remarkable. The hybrid cells were strong. They showed none of the degradation that plagues our people." Velith stared at the data. She did not want to believe it. Her entire life, she had been taught that other species were inferior. The idea of mixing Nithari blood with human blood seemed wrong. It seemed shameful, but the numbers did not lie. "You are saying," Velith spoke slowly, "that a human male could give me healthy children?" "Yes, my queen. Not just healthy, strong. Perhaps stronger than any Nithari born in 500 years. Velith stood up from her throne. She walked to the great window and looked out at her city. Once, millions of Nithari had lived here. Now, the streets were half empty. Buildings stood abandoned. Schools had closed because there were no children to teach. Her people were dying. They were dying because of pride, because they had refused to see value in anyone but themselves. "The court will never accept this," Velith said. "High Priest Morath will call it an abomination. He will say we should die with honor rather than pollute our blood." "High Priest Morath is a fool," Dorvan said. Then he caught himself. "Forgive me, my queen. I spoke out of turn." "No, you spoke the truth." Velith turned back to face him. "What is honor worth if we are all dead?" What is purity worth if it means extinction? She made her decision in that moment. She would rather be called a traitor than watch her people vanish. She would rather be hated than be the last queen of a dead race. Send a message to Earth, Velith commanded. Tell them we need to speak with their leaders. Tell them we have a request. Dorvan bowed. What shall I say, my queen? Velith took a deep breath. The next words she spoke would change everything. They would change the history of her people. They would change her own life forever. Tell them we need a volunteer. A human male willing to help us survive. Tell them we are offering an alliance unlike any the galaxy has ever seen. Tell them the Nithari Dominion is asking for help. It was the hardest thing she had ever said. For 3,000 years, the Nithari had never asked anyone for anything. They took what they wanted. They demanded respect. They did not beg. But Velith was not begging. She was being smart. She was being brave. She was putting her people's survival above her own pride. Dorvan hurried out to send the message. Velith remained at the window, watching the sun set over her dying city. Somewhere out there, among the stars, there was a small blue planet called Earth. On that planet lived the creatures her ancestors had dismissed as worthless. Now, those creatures might be the only hope the Nithari had left. Velith did not know what the humans would say. She did not know if any of them would agree to such a strange request. But she knew one thing for certain. She would do whatever it took to save her people, even if it meant breaking every tradition, even if it meant accepting help from the species she had been taught to look down upon. The message flew across the stars at the speed of light. It carried with it the fate of an entire civilization. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, a human ship received it. Everything was about to change. The message arrived on the United Earth vessel Horizon's Edge at 3 in the morning. Ship time. The communication officer read it twice because he could not believe what it said. Then he woke up the captain. Captain Park Sua was not happy about being pulled from her bed. She was a strict woman with short black hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had commanded the Horizon's Edge for 6 years. In that time, she had dealt with pirates, hostile aliens, and broken engines. She thought she had seen everything. She was wrong. "Read it again," she said, sitting in her command chair. The communication officer read the message one more time. When he finished, the bridge was completely silent. Every crew member stared at their captain, waiting for her reaction. The Nithari want a human male to father children with their queen. Sua said slowly. The same Nithari who call us primitive. The same Nithari who refused to trade with us for 50 years because they thought we were beneath them? Yes, Captain. Sua rubbed her eyes. Wake up, Kang Teho. He needs to see this. Kang Teho was the ship's xenobiologist. It was his job to study alien life forms and help the crew understand the species they met. He was 32 years old, with a kind face and gentle manner. He was not a soldier. He did not like conflict, but he was one of the smartest people on the ship, and Sua trusted his judgment. 20 minutes later, Teho stood on the bridge, reading the Nithari data on a screen. His eyes grew wider with each page. "This is incredible," he said. "Their entire species is dying from genetic degradation. It happens when a population becomes too isolated. The gene pool shrinks, and bad mutations build up over time. We saw this on Earth with some animal species before we learned to prevent it. Can human DNA really help them?" Sua asked. Teho nodded. "Human DNA is extremely adaptive. It is one of our greatest biological advantages. We can survive in almost any environment. We can eat almost any food. Our genes can mix with other genetic material more easily than most species. The Nithari scientists are correct. A human-Nithari hybrid could be incredibly strong." Sua crossed her arms. "I do not like this. The Nithari have treated humans like dirt for decades. Now they suddenly need our help? It could be a trap. They might want to capture a human for experiments." "That is possible," Teho admitted. "But look at this data. Look at their population numbers. They have gone from 2 billion to less than 50,000 in 300 years. They are desperate. Desperate people do not set traps. They ask for help. Desperate people do dangerous things," Sua replied. Teho set down the screen and looked at his captain. May I speak freely? Always. Humanity has been trying to earn respect in this galaxy for 100 years. Every alien race sees us as young and weak. The Nithari are one of the oldest and most powerful civilizations. If we help them survive, they will owe us everything. They will become our allies. Other species will see that humans are worth respecting. Su'a was quiet for a long moment. And who would volunteer for this mission? Who would agree to travel to an alien world and participate in this ritual? Teho took a deep breath. I will. The bridge went silent again. Su'a stared at him like he had lost his mind. You cannot be serious, she said. I am completely serious. Teho's voice was calm and steady. I am a xenobiologist. This is the greatest scientific opportunity of my life. I can study an alien species from the inside. I can help prevent an extinction. I can change the relationship between humans and Nithari forever. You could also die, Su'a said. We do not know what their bonding ritual involves. It could be painful. It could be deadly. I know the risks. Do you? Do you really understand what you are saying? Su'a stood up and walked toward him. You are talking about having children with an alien queen, children you might never see again, children who will grow up in an alien culture, following alien customs. Are you prepared for that? Teho met her eyes. My father died when I was young. He was a doctor. He traveled to poor countries to help sick people. One day, he caught a disease from a patient. He knew the risk, but he went anyway. Do you know what he told my mother before he left? Su'a shook her head. He said that some things are bigger than one person. Some things are worth the risk. He said that if he could save even one life, his own life would have meaning. Teho paused. I have a chance to save an entire species. Billions of lives across thousands of years. How can I say no? Su'a was quiet for a long time. She walked to the window and looked out at the stars. The Nithari homeworld was far away, but somewhere out there a queen was waiting for an answer. If you go, Su'a said finally, I cannot protect you. You will be alone on an alien world, surrounded by people who think humans are inferior. If something goes wrong, we might not be able to save you. I understand. You might never come home. I understand that too. Su'a turned back to face him. There was something in her eyes that might have been respect. Or maybe it was worry. It was hard to tell with her. You are either the bravest man I have ever met, she said, or the most foolish. Teho smiled. Maybe both. Su'a allowed herself a small smile in return. Very well. I will send a response to the Nithari. I will tell them that humanity accepts their request. I will tell them that we are sending our best. She put her hand on Teho's shoulder. Do not make me regret this, Kang Teho. Come back alive, and make humanity proud. Teho bowed his head. I will do my best, Captain. That night, a small shuttle left the horizon's edge and flew toward Nithari space. Inside sat a single human male with nothing but a bag of clothes and a heart full of hope. He did not know what waited for him on Neith Prime. He did not know if the Nithari would welcome him or hate him, but he knew he was doing the right thing. He knew that humanity's future in the galaxy might depend on what happened next, and he knew that his father, wherever he was, would be proud. The stars stretched out before him, endless and full of possibility. Somewhere ahead, a dying civilization waited for a miracle. Kang Teho was going to give them one. The shuttle landed on Ninth Prime as the sun was rising. Teho looked through the window and held his breath. The Nithari homeworld was beautiful in a strange and alien way. The sky was purple and pink. The trees had silver leaves that chimed like bells when the wind blew. The buildings were made of crystal that caught the light and scattered it into rainbows. But Teho did not have time to admire the view. A group of Nithari soldiers was waiting for him. They wore black armor and carried weapons that hummed with energy. Their faces showed no emotion. Human, the leader said. Follow us. The queen is waiting. Teho grabbed his bag and stepped out of the shuttle. The air smelled sweet, like flowers and honey. The gravity was slightly lighter than Earth, which made him feel like he might float away. He took a deep breath and followed the soldiers. The walk to the palace took almost an hour. Teho noticed that people stopped to stare at him. Some pointed and whispered. Others turned away in disgust. He heard words he did not understand, but he could guess their meaning from the tone. They were not kind words. He kept his head high and his eyes forward. He would not let them see his fear. The palace was even more impressive up close. Its walls rose so high that Taeho could not see the top. Guards stood at every entrance. Servants hurried through the halls, carrying food and messages. Everyone stopped to look at the strange human walking among them. The soldiers led Taeho to a massive door covered in gold and jewels. They pushed it open and stepped aside. "The throne room," the leader said. "Enter." Taeho walked inside. The throne room was the largest space he had ever seen. The ceiling was so high that clouds drifted beneath it. Pillars of crystal lined the walls, each one carved with scenes from Nithari history. At the far end of the room sat a throne made of pure light, and on that throne sat Queen Velith. She was more beautiful than Taeho had imagined. Her silver skin glowed softly. Her dark eyes seemed to see everything. She wore a crown of living flowers that changed color as he watched. She looked like a goddess. But she was not alone. The throne room was filled with Nithari nobles. They stood in groups, wearing expensive clothes and cruel expressions. They whispered to each other as Taeho walked past. He caught pieces of their conversation. "Look at it, so small and soft. I cannot believe the queen would lower herself to this. It is disgusting, an insult to our ancestors." Taeho ignored them. He walked until he reached the bottom of the steps that led to the throne. Then he knelt, as he had been taught to do. "Queen Velith," he said, "I am Kang Taeho of Earth. I have come to answer your request." The queen studied him for a long moment. Her face revealed nothing. "Rise," she said. Her voice was like music. Taeho stood. He met her eyes without fear. Before the queen could speak, an old Nithari stepped forward from the crowd. He wore robes of deep red and carried a staff topped with a glowing crystal. His face was twisted with anger. "This is madness," he shouted. "My queen, I beg you to reconsider. This creature is not worthy to stand in your presence, let alone bond with you. The blood of our ancestors would turn to poison if we mixed it with this animal." Murmurs of agreement spread through the crowd. Taeho felt his heart beating faster, but he did not move. "High Priest Morath," the queen said calmly, "I have made my decision. The scientists have shown that this is our only hope. Would you have us die instead?" "Yes." Morath slammed his staff against the floor. "Better to die with honor than to live in shame. Our children have always been pure Nithari. For 3,000 years, we have kept our bloodline clean. You would destroy everything our ancestors built." "Our ancestors are dead," Velith replied. "And soon we will join them, unless we change. I do not want to be the last queen of a dead species. I want to be the first queen of a new era." Morath pointed his staff at Taeho. "Look at him. He is weak. He has no armor, no telepathy, no venom. He would die in minutes if he faced any challenge our males face. How can you accept such a pathetic creature as your consort?" The crowd laughed. Taeho felt his face grow hot with shame and anger. But still, he did not move. He did not speak. He waited. Queen Velith raised her hand, and the room fell silent. "Let the human speak," she said. "I would hear why he came here." All eyes turned to Taeho. This was his moment. Everything depended on what he said next. He took a deep breath. "High Priest Morath is right. I am weak by your standards. I have no armor. I have no telepathy. I cannot survive the challenges your males face. If you judge me by Nithari standards, I will always fail." Morath smiled in triumph. The crowd whispered. But Taeho continued, "I did not come here to be Nithari. I came here to be human. And humans have our own kind of strength." He looked around the room, meeting the eyes of nobles who wanted him dead. "My species nearly destroyed itself. We had wars that killed millions. We poisoned our own planet. We came so close to extinction that we could taste it. But we survived. We survived because we learned to change. We learned to work together. We learned that pride is worthless if it leads to death." He turned back to the queen. "I came here because I believe in hope. I believe that two species, working together, can be stronger than either one alone. I do not ask you to respect me. I do not ask you to like me. I only ask for a chance to help." The room was silent. No one moved. No one breathed. Queen Velith stood up from her throne. She walked down the steps slowly, her gown trailing behind her like water. She stopped in front of Taeho and looked into his eyes. "You speak well, human," she said softly. "Better than many in my own court. But words are easy, actions are hard." "Then give me a chance to prove myself through action," Taeho replied. Velith studied him for a long moment. Then she did something that shocked everyone in the room. She smiled. "Walk with me," she said. "I want to show you my gardens. No outsider has ever seen them before." She turned and walked toward a side door. Taeho hesitated for only a second, then followed. Behind them, the court exploded in whispers. High Priest Morath stared in disbelief. A human, walking beside the queen, invited to the royal gardens. It was unthinkable. It was impossible. But it was happening. As they walked through halls of crystal and light, Velith spoke quietly. "You should know that my people will not accept you easily. Many will try to hurt you. Some will try to kill you." "I know," Taeho said. "And still you stay? I made a promise to help. I do not break my promises." Velith nodded slowly. "Perhaps humans are not as weak as we believed. Perhaps there is strength in your softness." She pushed open a door, and they stepped into the most beautiful garden Taeho had ever seen. Flowers of every color filled the air with sweet perfume. Fountains of liquid light danced in the breeze. Strange birds sang songs that sounded like laughter. "This is where I come to think," Velith said. "This is where I come to be alone. And now, for the first time, I am sharing it with someone who is not Naithari." She turned to face him. "You have courage, Kang Taeho. That is rare. That is valuable. But courage alone will not be enough. You will have to pass the trials. You will have to prove yourself worthy in the eyes of my people." "I will try my best," Taeho said. "Your best may not be enough. Then I will try harder than my best." Velith laughed. It was a soft, surprised sound, like she had forgotten how to laugh and was just remembering. "I think I am beginning to like you, human," she said. "That is either very good or very dangerous. I'm not sure which." They stood together in the garden as the sun climbed higher in the purple sky. Somewhere behind them, a court full of enemies was plotting against the human. Somewhere in the galaxy, Captain Sua was watching the stars and worrying about her friend. But in that moment, there was only the garden, the queen, and the beginning of something new. The bonding ritual was ancient. It had existed for longer than anyone could remember. Every male who wished to bond with a Naithari queen had to pass 7 trials, one for each day of the sacred week. The trials tested strength, speed, intelligence, and will. Only the worthy could complete them. No human had ever attempted the trials. Many believed no human ever could. On the first day, Taeho faced the trial of knowledge. He sat in a room with 7 Naithari scholars who asked him questions about science, history, and philosophy. They expected him to fail. They expected him to prove that humans were stupid. Instead, Taeho surprised them. He answered questions about biology and chemistry with ease. He discussed the nature of the universe with intelligence. When they asked him about Naithari history, he admitted he did not know much, but he asked thoughtful questions and listened carefully to their answers. At the end of the day, the scholars looked at each other in confusion. The human had not failed. He had shown wisdom and humility. These were rare qualities. "He passes," the chief scholar announced. Barely. On the second day, Taeho faced the trial of speed. He had to race against a young Naithari warrior across a field filled with obstacles. The Naithari could run twice as fast as any human. Everyone knew Taeho would lose. He lost badly. The Naithari warrior finished the race while Taeho was still climbing over the second wall. The crowd laughed and pointed. High Priest Morath smiled with satisfaction. "The human fails," the judges announced. As expected, on the third day, Taeho faced the trial of strength. He had to lift heavy stones and carry them across a courtyard. Again, he failed. His human muscles could not match Naithari power. He collapsed after the 5th stone, his body shaking with exhaustion. "The human fails again," the judges said. On the 4th day, Taeho faced the trial of venom. Every Nithari could produce venom from glands in their mouths. It was a defense against enemies. In this trial, Teho had to survive being stung by a Nithari warrior. The venom burned like fire. Teho screamed as it spread through his body. He fell to the ground, convulsing with pain. Doctors rushed to give him medicine before the venom could kill him. The human fails, the judges announced. He is too fragile. By the 5th day, Teho had failed 3 trials and passed only 1. The court whispered that the queen should send him home. Even the scientists who had wanted him to come began to doubt. Perhaps humans were too different. Perhaps this had been a mistake. Teho lay in his room, his body still aching from the venom. He thought about giving up. He thought about going home and admitting that he was not strong enough. The thought made him feel sick, but the pain made him feel worse. Then he remembered his father's words. Some things are bigger than one person. He got out of bed. On the 5th day, Teho faced the trial of creation. He had to make something beautiful using only materials found in the palace gardens. This was a test of art and imagination. Teho spent hours collecting flowers, stones, and branches. He wove them together into a sculpture that told a story. It showed a Nithari queen reaching out her hand to a small human figure. Their fingers were almost touching. Between them, he placed a flower that was just beginning to bloom. It represents hope, he explained to the judges. It represents 2 species coming together to create something new. Something that does not exist yet, but could exist if we are brave enough. The judges were silent for a long time. Then the chief judge spoke. "It is beautiful," she said. "The human passes." On the 6th day, Teho faced the trial of loyalty. He was placed in a room with an illusion that looked exactly like Queen Velith. The illusion offered him power. It offered him wealth. It offered to make him king of the Nithari if he would betray the real queen. Teho refused. The illusion changed. Now it threatened him. It said it would kill him if he did not agree. It showed him images of his own death, painful and slow. Still, Teho refused. "I came here to help," he said to the illusion, "not to gain power, not to become king. If you want to kill me, kill me. But I will not betray the queen who trusted me." The illusion disappeared. The judges nodded their approval. "The human passes," they said. Now Teho had passed 3 trials and failed 3. The final trial would decide everything. If he passed, he would be declared worthy. If he failed, he would be sent home in shame. The 7th trial was the trial of will. Teho was brought to a dark chamber deep beneath the palace. In the center of the chamber stood a single chair. Priests surrounded him, their hands glowing with telepathic energy. "In this trial," the chief priest explained, "we will enter your mind. We will find your worst memories, your deepest fears, your greatest shame. We will make you live through them again. If your will breaks, you fail. If you surrender to despair, you fail. Only by facing your darkness and remaining whole can you pass." Teho sat in the chair. He closed his eyes. The telepathic probe entered his mind like a knife. Suddenly, he was 8 years old again. He was standing at his father's grave. Rain was falling. His mother was crying. He remembered the emptiness, the terrible feeling that nothing would ever be good again. He wanted to scream. Then he was 15, standing in a classroom while other students laughed at him. He had failed an important test. Everyone thought he was stupid. The shame burned like acid. Then he was 25, watching a relationship fall apart. The woman he loved told him he was not good enough. She walked away, and he stood alone in an empty apartment, wondering if she was right. The memories kept coming. Every failure, every moment of weakness, every time he had wanted to give up. The pain was overwhelming. Teho felt like he was drowning in darkness. But then he remembered something else. He remembered his father teaching him to ride a bicycle. He remembered the pride in his father's eyes when he finally succeeded. He remembered his mother hugging him after the funeral, telling him that his father would always be proud of him. He remembered choosing to become a scientist because he wanted to help people, just like his father had. The darkness was real, the pain was real, but they were not the whole story. There was also love. There was also hope. There was also strength that came from choosing to keep going even when everything hurt. Teho opened his eyes. "I am not afraid of my darkness," he said to the priests. It is part of me, but it does not control me. I choose to keep going. I choose hope. The telepathic probe withdrew. The priest stared at him in amazement. No one in 3 centuries had faced the trial of will with such calm. No one had looked into their own darkness and emerged so quickly, so completely whole. The human passes, the chief priest whispered. He passes with honor. The news spread through the palace like wildfire. The human had completed the trials. He had failed the tests of body but passed the tests of mind and spirit. By Nithari law, he was worthy. That night, Queen Velith came to Teho's room. She found him sitting by the window, looking up at the 3 moons that hung in the sky. You surprised everyone, she said. I surprised myself, he admitted. Velith sat beside him. For a long moment, they were silent. The bonding ritual will take place tomorrow night, she said finally. It is not too late to change your mind. Teho shook his head. I have come too far to stop now. And I want to help. I really do. Velith reached out and took his hand. Her skin was cool and smooth against his. Then tomorrow we begin something new, she said. Something that has never happened before in all of Nithari history. Under the light of 3 moons, the queen and the human sat together. Tomorrow would change everything. But tonight, they had this moment of peace. And somehow, that was enough. The bonding ritual happened under the 3 moons of Ninth Prime. It was a ceremony of light and sound, of ancient words spoken in the oldest Nithari language. Teho understood only pieces of it, but he felt its power. Something changed inside him that night. He became connected to Velith in a way he could not explain, like a thread had been woven between their souls. Afterward, they waited. Weeks passed. The royal doctors examined the queen every day. They took samples of her blood. They studied her with machines that hummed and blinked. They whispered to each other in corners, their faces showing nothing. Teho tried to stay busy. He read books about Nithari history. He walked in the gardens. He learned to speak basic Nithari phrases. But always, in the back of his mind, he wondered, had the bonding worked? Would there be children? High Priest Morath and his followers had not given up. They held protests outside the palace. They gave speeches about purity and tradition. They called Teho names that he was glad he did not fully understand. Some threw stones at his window. Guards had to stand outside his door at all times. One morning, 6 weeks after the bonding ritual, Queen Velith called Teho to her private chambers. Her face was strange, her eyes wide with an emotion he could not name. The doctors have completed their tests, she said. Teho's heart pounded. And? Velith was silent for a moment. Then she smiled. It was the brightest smile he had ever seen. I am carrying 3 children, she said. 3 healthy children. The doctors say they have never seen embryos so strong. Teho felt his knees go weak. He sat down heavily in the nearest chair. 3, he repeated. 3 children. 2 daughters and a son. Velith crossed the room and knelt before him. She took his hands in hers. You have done it, Teho. You have given my people a future. For a long moment, Teho could not speak. He thought about all the pain and struggle, the trials he had failed, the insults he had endured, the times he had wanted to give up, and now this. New life. Hope. I am glad, he said finally. His voice was thick with emotion. I am so glad. Velith stood and pulled him to his feet. Come. We must announce this to the court. The throne room was packed with nobles when they arrived. High Priest Morath stood at the front, his arms crossed, his face dark with anger. He had heard rumors, but he refused to believe them. Queen Velith climbed the steps to her throne. She raised her hand, and the room fell silent. People of the Nithari Dominion, she announced, I bring news that will change our history forever. The bonding has succeeded. I am carrying 3 healthy children. The genetic degradation that has plagued our people for centuries is not present in these embryos. They are strong, they are perfect. Our species will survive. For a moment, there was complete silence. Then a sound began to build. It started as a whisper and grew into a roar. Nobles were crying. Nobles were cheering. Some fell to their knees in prayer. After centuries of watching their species die, they finally had hope, but not everyone was celebrating. High Priest Morath pushed through the crowd until he stood before the throne. His face was red with fury. "These are not true, Nithari," he shouted. "They are half-breeds. Mongrels. They carry human blood, and human blood is poison. You have not saved our species. You have destroyed it." Velith's eyes turned cold. "Be careful, Morath. You speak of my children. I speak the truth. These things growing inside you are not your children. They are monsters. Abominations. They should be destroyed before they are born." A gasp ran through the crowd. Even those who opposed the bonding were shocked by his words. Teho stepped forward. "You cannot seriously suggest killing unborn children." Morath turned on him. "You have no right to speak, human. You have corrupted our queen. You have poisoned our bloodline. You are the enemy of everything the Nithari stand for." He turned back to the crowd. "Who stands with me? Who will help me remove this human and end this madness before it goes further?" For a terrible moment, no one moved. Then a group of nobles in red robes walked forward to stand behind Morath. They were his followers, the ones who believed in purity above all else. There were perhaps 50 of them, enough to cause serious trouble. "You see," Morath said, "not everyone has lost their minds. Not everyone has forgotten what it means to be Nithari. We demand that the queen remove this human and terminate the pregnancy. If she refuses, we will take action ourselves." Velith stood up from her throne. When she spoke, her voice was quiet but carried through the entire room. "You threaten my children," she said. "You threaten the father of my children. You demand that I kill the only hope our species has had in 300 years. She walked down the steps slowly. The crowd moved back, giving her space. "I have been patient with you, Morath. I have allowed you to speak your mind. I have tolerated your protests and your insults. But now you have gone too far." She stopped in front of him. Though she was shorter than the priest, she seemed to tower over him. "Guards," she said, "arrest High Priest Morath and his followers. They have committed treason against the crown and threatened the lives of the royal children." Guards in black armor surrounded the group. Morath's followers looked around in panic. Some tried to fight. They were quickly overwhelmed. Morath himself was forced to his knees. He looked up at Velith with hatred in his eyes. "You will regret this," he spat. "The people will not accept half-breed rulers. When your monsters are born, there will be a revolution. Everything you have built will burn." Velith looked down at him without emotion. "You are wrong, Morath. You have always been wrong. The people do not want to die. They want to live, and I am giving them that chance." She turned to the guards. "Take him to the prison tower. He will stand trial for treason." As the guards dragged Morath away, Velith addressed the crowd once more. "Let this be a lesson. I will do anything to protect my children. I will do anything to ensure the survival of our species. Anyone who threatens either will face the same fate as Morath." She looked at Teho. "This human has given us what 10,000 years of purity could not. He has given us a future. From this day forward, he will be honored as the royal consort of the Nithari Dominion. Any disrespect toward him is disrespect toward me." The crowd bowed. Even those who had doubted the queen bowed. Fear and hope had mixed together into something like respect. Later that night, Teho stood on a balcony overlooking the city. He could see lights flickering in thousands of windows. Somewhere out there, people were celebrating. They were drinking and dancing and crying with joy. For the first time in generations, they believed they might have a future. Velith joined him on the balcony. She put her hand on her stomach, where new life was growing. "I did not expect it to be this hard," she admitted. "I thought that if I gave my people hope, they would be grateful. I forgot that change is always difficult. I forgot that some would rather die than accept something new." "Morath has followers," Teho said. "Even with him in prison, they will cause trouble." "I know, but we will face them together." She turned to look at him. "I chose well when I chose you, Kang Teho. You are stronger than you look." Teho smiled. "I have heard that before." They stood together in the moonlight, the queen and her human consort, waiting for the future to be born. Morath's trial ended with his execution. He refused to apologize. He refused to accept the children. In his final words, he called Velith a traitor and promised that his followers would continue his fight. His death made him a hero to those who shared his beliefs. Attacks on the palace increased. Bombs exploded in the gardens. Assassins tried to sneak through the walls. Twice, poison was found in the queen's food. The guards worked constantly to keep her safe. Through it all, Velith remained strong. Her body grew heavy with the children inside her. Walking became difficult. Breathing became difficult. But she refused to hide. She refused to show fear. She appeared in public whenever possible, showing her people that their future was growing inside her. Teho stayed by her side. He learned to fight with Nithari weapons. He trained with the guards. He tasted her food before she ate it. He slept outside her door with a blade in his hand. The soft human scientist had become something harder, something more dangerous. He had to. The ones he loved depended on him. News of the pregnancy spread across the galaxy. Other species watched with interest. Some thought the Nithari were making a mistake. Others were curious to see what would happen. A few even sent messages of support, hoping to build relationships with whoever came to power. The human ship Horizon's Edge remained nearby, just outside Nithari space. Captain Park Suah had refused to leave until she knew Teho was safe. She sent him messages every week, asking if he needed help. He always said no. This was something he had to do himself. Finally, the day came. Queen Velith went into labor on a cool morning in late autumn. Doctors surrounded her bed. Priests prayed in the corner. Teho held her hand and refused to let go. The labor was long and painful. Velith screamed and cried. Her body was not made for this kind of birth. The hybrid children were larger than normal Nithari babies. The doctors worried. They prepared for the worst. But Velith was strong, stronger than anyone knew. At noon, the first child was born, a girl with silver skin and dark hair. She opened her eyes and looked at the world with fierce curiosity. The doctors examined her quickly. Healthy, they announced. Perfectly healthy. An hour later, the second child was born, another girl, slightly smaller than her sister. She cried loudly, her voice filling the room. Healthy? The doctor said again. Their voices shook with emotion. Finally, as the sun was setting, the third child was born. A boy with his father's gentle face and his mother's silver eyes. He did not cry. He simply looked at his parents and blinked. Healthy, the doctors whispered. All three are healthy. Teho looked at his children. His children. The words felt strange and wonderful and terrifying all at once. He had helped create new life. Not just any life, but the future of an entire species. Velith lay exhausted on her bed, but she was smiling. She held the firstborn daughter in her arms and looked at her with a love so deep it seemed to fill the entire room. She has your eyes, Velith said to Teho. The shape of them, human eyes. And your strength, Teho replied. I can already tell. Outside the palace, word spread quickly. The royal children had been born. The Dominion had heirs. For the first time in 300 years, the future was secure. People poured into the streets. They celebrated with music and dancing. Fireworks lit up the purple sky. Even those who had doubted the queen joined in. It was impossible to look at the joy on people's faces and feel anything but hope. 3 days later, Queen Velith held a ceremony to present her children to the galaxy. The throne room was packed with people, not just Nithari nobles, but visitors from dozens of species. Humans, including Captain Park Suah and her crew, stood in a place of honor near the front. Representatives from ancient empires and young republics filled every available space. Velith sat on her throne, her children in special cradles beside her. Teho stood at her right hand, dressed in the formal robes of a royal consort. People of the Dominion, Velith announced, people of the galaxy, I present to you the future of the Nithari, my daughters, Nira and Selah, my son, Talon. The children were lifted by servants so everyone could see them. They were beautiful. Their skin had the silver shine of their mother's people, but their faces carried hints of their human father. They looked like something new, something that had never existed before. The doctors had already shared their findings. The children showed none of the genetic degradation that had plagued the Nithari. They were immune to diseases that had killed millions. They had inherited the best traits of both species: Nithari strength and telepathy, human adaptability, and emotional depth. These children are not pure Nithari, Velith continued. They are something new, something better. They are proof that the old ways do not have to be the only ways. They are proof that change can bring strength instead of weakness. She turned to look at Taeho. They exist because a human man chose to help us. He came to our world knowing he would be hated. He endured trials that should have broken him. He risked his life to give us hope. I have never met anyone braver. She stood up from her throne and faced Taeho directly. The room was completely silent. When my ancestors first encountered humans, she said, they dismissed you as fragile creatures from a single, unremarkable world. They thought you were weak because you did not have armor or telepathy or venom. They were fools. She bowed her head. A queen of the Nithari, bowing to a human. It was something no one had ever seen before. It is an honor to carry your children, human, she said. It is an honor to have you as my consort. It is an honor to call you the father of the new dawn. The room erupted. Nobles bowed. Visitors from other species applauded. Humans cheered. The sound was overwhelming, filling the throne room and spilling out into the streets beyond. Captain Sua had tears in her eyes. She had sent Taeho on this mission, hoping he would survive. She had never imagined he would become one of the most important figures in galactic history. Taeho stepped forward and took Velith's hands in his. The honor is mine, he said quietly, so only she could hear. Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for believing that this could work. Velith smiled. Thank you for proving that it could. They stood together before the galaxy. The queen and her human consort, their children sleeping peacefully in their cradles. Around them, history was being made. Old prejudices were crumbling. New possibilities were opening. The Nithari had faced extinction, and they had chosen hope. A human had offered help, and they had accepted it. Two species, so different in every way, had come together to create something neither could have made alone. It was only the beginning. Outside the palace, fireworks painted the sky with light. Throughout the Dominion, people celebrated. And across the galaxy, other species watched and wondered. If the proud Nithari could accept help from humans, if they could change their ways after 3,000 years, then perhaps anything was possible. Perhaps the universe was not as fixed as everyone had believed. Perhaps hope was stronger than pride after all. 10 years passed, like water flowing downhill. Fast in some places, slow in others, but always moving forward. The three children grew strong. Nira, the eldest daughter, showed signs of her mother's telepathic abilities by age 3. She could sense emotions before anyone spoke them. By age 7, she could communicate silently across great distances. The priest said she was the most gifted telepath born in 5 generations. Sela, the second daughter, inherited her father's curiosity. She asked questions about everything. Why did the moons move? How did ships fly between stars? What were humans like on their homeworld? She spent hours in the royal library, reading books in 3 different languages. The scholars said she would become a great scientist. Talon, the son, was different from his sisters. He was quiet and thoughtful. He liked to sit in the gardens and watch insects crawl across flowers. He liked to help the servants with their work. He treated everyone the same, from nobles to cleaners. The people loved him for his kindness. All 3 children were healthy. The doctors continued to study them, amazed by what they found. The hybrid genetics had worked better than anyone had predicted. The children were immune to diseases that had killed millions of Nithari. They were stronger than previous generations. They healed faster from injuries. More importantly, Nura and Sela both showed signs that they could have children of their own. The royal bloodline was secure. The Nithari would survive. The rebellion led by Morath's followers eventually faded. Some were arrested. Some gave up. Many simply changed their minds when they saw the children growing healthy and strong. It was hard to hate something so full of life. It was hard to call hope an abomination. A new generation of Nithari grew up watching the hybrid children play in the palace gardens. They did not see monsters or half-breeds. They saw their future leaders. They saw proof that their species would continue. The relationship between the Nithari Dominion and Earth grew stronger with each passing year. Trade agreements were signed. Scientists shared research. Nithari ships visited human worlds, and human ships visited Nithari space. What had once been suspicion and scorn became respect and friendship. Other species noticed. Some made their own overtures toward humanity. The Nithari, one of the oldest and most respected civilizations in the galaxy, had accepted humans as equals. Perhaps humans were worth knowing after all. Tejo watched all of this happen with quiet pride. He had changed too. His hair was streaked with gray now. Lines had appeared around his eyes. He was no longer the young scientist who had stepped off a shuttle 10 years ago. But some things had not changed. He still walked in the gardens every morning. He still read books about alien biology. He still looked at his children with wonder. One evening, when the family was together for dinner, his youngest daughter, Selah, asked him a question. "Father," she said, "why do other species treat humans differently now than they did when you were young? I read in my history books that humans used to be ignored. Now everyone wants to talk to them." Tejo set down his cup and thought about his answer. "When I was young," he said, "humans were new to the galaxy. We had only been traveling between stars for about 200 years. Other species had been doing it for thousands of years. They looked at us and saw children. Weak, soft, unimportant. But you are not weak," Nira said. "You passed the trials. You survived things that would have killed many Nithari." "That is true, but I did not pass the trials by being stronger or faster. I passed them by being stubborn, by refusing to give up." Tejo smiled. "Humans are not the strongest species. We are not the fastest or the smartest. But we are very, very stubborn. We keep going even when everything tells us we should stop." "Is that why you came here?" Talon asked. "Because you were stubborn?" "Partly," Tejo admitted. "But also because I believed it was the right thing to do. Your mother's people were dying. I had a chance to help. How could I say no?" Valith, who had been listening silently, reached across the table and took his hand. "Your father taught the galaxy something important," she said to the children. "He taught them that strength comes in many forms. The Nithari believed strength meant armor and weapons and telepathy. We were wrong. True strength is choosing hope when everything says you should give up. True strength is helping others even when they have treated you badly. True strength is being brave enough to change." The children were quiet, thinking about their mother's words. "Will I have to be that strong?" Nira asked. She was old enough to understand that one day she would be queen. The weight of that future sat heavily on her young shoulders. "Yes," Velith said honestly. "Being a leader means making hard choices. It means putting your people before yourself. It means being stubborn, like your father. But you will not be alone," Tejo added. "Your mother and I will teach you everything we know, and your brother and sister will always stand beside you. Strength is easier when you do not have to carry it alone." After dinner, Tejo walked in the gardens. The 3 moons were high in the sky, casting silver light over the flowers. He remembered standing in this exact spot 10 years ago, nervous and afraid, wondering if he had made a terrible mistake. He had not made a mistake. He had made a miracle. A message arrived from Earth. The United Earth Council wanted him to return home for a celebration. They were building a statue in his honor. They wanted him to give a speech. They wanted the galaxy to see the man who had saved the Nithari. Tejo sent back a polite refusal. He did not need statues or speeches. He had everything he needed right here. But he did agree to bring his family to Earth for a visit. The children had never seen their father's homeworld. They had only read about it in books and seen pictures on screens. They deserved to see the blue oceans and green forests with their own eyes. The trip was arranged for the following month. Velith would come too, the first Nithari queen to ever set foot on Earth. It would be a historic moment. On the night before they left, Tejo stood on the balcony of the palace, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, the small blue planet where he had been born. Somewhere out there was Captain Park, Su'a, still commanding her ship, still watching over him from a distance. Velith joined him on the balcony. She looked as beautiful as the day he had first seen her, perhaps more so. Age had softened her, made her gentler. The weight of leadership was still there, but it no longer seemed so heavy. "Are you nervous about going home?" she asked. "A little," he admitted. "I have been gone so long. Everything will be different. You are different too, she reminded him. You are no longer just Kang Tae-ho, scientist. You are the royal consort of the Nithari Dominion. You are the father of the new dawn. You are a symbol of what humans can achieve. I am still just me, Tae-ho said. Still the same person who failed the trial of speed and the trial of strength. Still the same person who could not lift more than 5 stones. Velith laughed. And still the same person who passed the trial of will without breaking. Still the same person who faced his darkness and chose hope. She leaned against him. That is the person I love. Not the symbol. The real you. They stood together in the moonlight, just as they had done so many times before. Below them, the city glowed with life. Millions of Nithari lived there now, more than had lived anywhere in centuries. Children played in the streets. Shops sold goods from 100 worlds. The sound of laughter and music drifted up to the palace. It was a living city. A hopeful city. A city with a future. On 9th Prime, a statue had been erected in the royal gardens. It showed a human man standing beside a Nithari queen, their hands joined together. Between them stood 3 children, looking out at the world with wonder in their eyes. The inscription at the base was simple. From one world's courage, an empire reborn. Tourists came from across the galaxy to see it. They took pictures and asked questions. Some came as skeptics, expecting to find a civilization in decline. Instead, they found a civilization renewed, stronger than it had been in generations. And they found something else too. They found proof that the universe was not fixed. They found proof that enemies could become friends. They found proof that 2 species, working together, could be stronger than either one alone. Most of all, they found hope. Tae-ho looked at the stars one last time. Then he turned and walked back into the palace, where his wife and children were waiting. Tomorrow, they would travel to Earth. Tomorrow, the galaxy would celebrate what they had achieved. But tonight, he just wanted to be with his family. Some things were bigger than one person, but some things were small and precious and perfect. And Kang Tae-ho had found both.